just for those of you who don't know Faouzi, Faouzi's probably the best known winemaker, in fact, definitely the best known winemaker in Lebanon these days. Now that Serge is no longer with us, sadly. For those of you who don't know Faouzi, he's very helpfully put the name of his winery on the wall behind him, along with all of that, well, that collection of corkscrews and other implements, racking tools and all sorts of things. The Domaine de Tourelles is, as you can see on the wall, 1868. It's the oldest winery in Lebanon. It was set up by a Frenchman, wasn't it, called François Eugène Brun. I just wonder, just tell us a little bit about him, this sort of crazy Frenchman that the Lebanon reminded him of home, and just how old are the vines, your oldest vines? Do any of the vines that he planted, do any of those sites still exist? I mean, probably the vines are no longer there, but the sites might well be.
No, definitely some of the vines are still existing. And I mean, part of the old vines of the Bekaa Valley is, 50 years ago, there was, 30 years ago, there was only 3-4 wineries active in the Bekaa Valley. So definitely Pierre Brun used to be one of the active planters of old vines, of currently old vines in the Bekaa Valley. And so Pierre Brun he's from the south of France, who came to, whose grandfather came to Lebanon. So he's the third generation. So Domaine de Tourelles goes back to 1868. And the family was working on the international highway that goes from Beirut, Bekaa to Syria and Jordan. And François Eugène Brun, who is the grandfather, decided to stop the work with the company of the engineering company, and built one of the most beautiful today winery in the Bekaa Valley, considered to be the first commercial winery in Lebanon, because at that time families used to produce their own wines, and church and Xara used to be producing wines for the church. So Domaine de Tourelles was the first brand to sell ready bottles to the market.
Do we know what he planted? Do the records exist of what he planted?
Definitely. He definitely used some table grapes available at that time. And we can say that Cinsault, Carignan were grapes that planted in the region. We know, I worked with some old vines, Cinsault. There were 65 to 75 years in the same area called Halwa. And people, they say that these vines were planted from actual old vines available in the Bekaa Valley. So,
and those cuttings would have come from France or maybe North Africa in those days.
Old cuttings from North Africa, definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting. Many people may not know the French link that Lebanon was a French protectorate for a while, and a lot of Lebanese speak French as well as English. You studied at the University of Montpellier, having studied first of all in Beirut, and you worked for René Rostang in the Rhône, and then you worked at Chateau Margaux in Bordeaux. And in 2008, as a very young man, you're still young, you went back to run Domaine de Tourelles. Just tell us what state the vineyards were in when you got back there.
Actually, it's coming back from at the young age, coming back to Bekaa Valley to run the family business, you will definitely come back with an idea of restructuring everything, destroying concrete vats, building stainless steel, buying stainless steel, going into technology, high tech, planting new vines. But I was too lucky that when I left Margaux, there was a big wave in Bordeaux, Club de Neuf, all the big wineries, big wave of going back to the roots. I'm talking about back in 2007, where wineries like Petrus, Latour, Margaux were all reconsidering the importance of concrete vats, reconsidering the importance of natural fermentation, natural yeasting. So I got this. I got this wave and reflection when I came back home that I need to relax, counter then, bring back in value all what Domaine de Tourelles is rich of, which is the walls, the concrete vats, the ambiance, the family spirit, the natural production, the old vines, the bush vines, not the espalier. So all this style of I call them gold memories or gold facts of the winery were brought back, luckily, to the scene, you know. And since then, I was working day to day to discovering something new and discovering something that we need to bring back from the old times. I mean, like the filtration, like the old vines, like the concrete vase, natural yeasting, everything.
But it's interesting that old vines were part of a philosophy. They're part of your philosophy, that it's old ways, and we can see all those old corkscrews on the wall. But I know that you, like Elias, working with those tinajas, you're using a lot of concrete and older, bigger wood, aren't you, in your wines?
Yeah, bigger. We're working on the concrete vats. Yeah, definitely. I mean, concrete vats. I mean, it goes all like the same family. You know, concrete vats, old vines, natural yeasting, crazy style of producing wines without going by the book. You know, you should always think that you cannot go too wild while opening the book every day and checking what's right, what's wrong. You know, you need to go full adventure, full on board, and that's what makes the good job. The end result coherent, you know. I mean, you've said, I mean, if when I came back home, the old vines were available, definitely. And for a winemaker, I mean, like me, I mean, old vines is much more beautiful, much more easy than young shoots. You know, old vines are self-regulated, self-balanced. They are solid. They give you ripening on the right time. They give you structure. They give you acidity. So definitely they give you good quality. You know, whereas young shoots, young vines, you need to struggle to find the balance. You need to make sure that plantation location is correctly. So old vines is just like like it makes your game easier.
Okay. Can so we've got apologies for the technical issue. Buffering seems to be sorted. On self-regulating old vines, we're going to show this video where Faouzi found wild vines, well, doing their own thing. Not exactly wild vines, old vines doing their own thing.
Okay. Faouzi, can you talk us through it?
Yeah, so this is
see the cedar.
So this is the cedars. This is a part of Mount Lebanon where cedars are available. All cedars are available. I would say, I mean, cedars that are more than hundreds of years, and I would say that they make the beauty of Lebanon. You can see grapevines, vines called merweh, just climbing on old cedars, wild grown there, available in the region since ages, non-treated, non-pruned, anything. It's just randomly grown wild in the region, and it's beautiful that you can see they are still healthy. I mean, we are bad people, technology people who really created this kind of protocol to let the vines get used to us, But if you keep them, they can be. I mean, they can grow easily alone. Give you the beautiful structure. This merweh has acidity, Tim. You cannot believe the acidity. I mean, I just bottled the first vintage of old merweh Abaidi last week. The acidity is unreal. The structure is unreal. The story, the history that gives you this wine is unreal. It's not treated. Can you believe 20 years, 30 years probably, non-pruned, non-treated. You still have healthy grapes. You still have good yield, good ambiance of the vines. And thanks to a friend called Eddie Shami, who we spent, for a couple of weeks searching and digging on the wild mountain of that area, just finding where we can find some délaissés, some vines that are not being taken care of. And we discovered, I mean, many things. I mean, today, the white wine I've produced. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Just tell us quickly, for people who don't know it, about the Bekaa Valley, because you're obviously in a Mediterranean climate, Eastern Mediterranean climate. but it's at altitude, isn't it? I mean, what's special about this place? Just tell us about the soils and why have old vines survived there in particular?
I mean, it's just, I mean, Bekaa Valley is the hub of natural producing vines, apple trees, olive trees, everything, birds. And I mean, I can see people saying that the audio is not working, probably from me. Tim, are you hearing me?
Yeah, well, I can hear you, yeah. Well, I think, can everybody hear Faouzi? I think so.
I think there are a few problems. I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, the beauty of Bekaa Valley is that it has all the characteristics, climate characteristics that can give you the comfort zone of planting wide variety of grapes and going very wild in this variety. So when I say wild, you don't need to make, you don't need to plant with 90-degree vines, properly made, modeling vines. You just need to go wild and keep the vines adapt to itself, adapt to the weather. So that's why bush vines is essential. That's why old vines can be well adapted to the area, and we have clean and correct weather that really can push the old vines to keep on fighting for a long time and a long cycle. Because I mean, what is the enemy? What is the enemy of old vines? It's diseases. It's dryness of the shoots. It's the difference of temperature that can really attack the young shoot of every year of the old vines tree. So when you have correct balance of the weather, the old vines will survive, and it will give you always good quality and coherent quality. So Bekaa Valley is amazing. I mean, it's amazing for the old vines. And, yeah.
I mean, Lebanon has about 2,500 hectares overall. I mean, what percentage of those would be old vines? If we say an old vine is over 50 years old, let's say for a sake of argument.
I would say probably 10 to 15% old vines above 50, but out of the 10-15, there is certainly 3-4% that can cross the 100 years, 150 years. I mean, these merweh, definitely more than 150 years. I mean, grown in the mountain widely, and without any problem, and giving you great yield.
And are most of the grapes that have survived, are they Mediterranean grapes, in inverted commas, like Carignan, like Cinsault, like Grenache? You also mentioned Meroueh. What about Obeidi, which is the other Lebanese grape? There are two native, in inverted commas, Lebanese grapes, aren't there?
Yeah, Obeidi is the king of table grapes. And that recently, I mean, we discovered that it's the king for Arak as well, to our Lebanese friends.
Yeah.
And Arak, Tim, exists since thousands of years in Lebanon. I mean, who doesn't drink Arak? I mean, in Lebanon. So definitely, Obeidi is an old variety in Lebanon. We have some beautiful old parcels of Obeidi that gives you amazing fat to the wine, with good, beautiful backbone and good minerality and salinity. So yeah, I mean, Obeidi is again another beautiful. I've just made a new blend now, which is and I think it's rare, which I blended the Meroueh from the Mount of Lebanon in the region of cedars with the Obeidi, who's the king of Bekaa Valley, 50-50. One that has beautiful acidity, the other one that has a nice minerality and fattiness in the wine, and both are old vines, and really the result, I'm not doing marketing to myself, but the result is touching. It's touching. It gives you a feeling that that we don't need all the books. We don't need all this mega technology to produce beautiful wines. We just need 90% of the job is made by the vine. If it's well properly adapted to its soil, it gives you great wines.
But you've talked about the advantages of working with old vines. Obviously, it's traditional, it's part of heritage, they're self-regulating, all those sorts of things. I just wonder, are there any disadvantages? I mean, yields, obviously one of them. What about finding the people to work the vineyards? How do you find the people who can work those vineyards?
Listen, again, it's the easiest part when you have old vines. I mean, old vines are I mean, you have especially when our bush vines, you know, you have the shape that is easy to treat it. Anyone who understands a little bit pruning can prune it. For the people and cultural practices, it's easy. The disadvantage you have, I mean, it's commonly as the yield, where you have low yield. I would say there is the disadvantage is much more amplified when you don't own the land or one, and two, when you're a winemaker in a winery that the company expects from you always, you know, financially good results and everything. You need to spend time to explain that old vines gives you low yield. But other than losing financially, I mean, and yet it's not proven, because when you sell old wines, you get more earnings because you sell it with higher price. Yeah. And but definitely you lose value of the land because you get much less in yield. And diseases, because I mean, you need
Which
to use
diseases in particular? Issa is bad, is it?
Issa is bad. Depressement is bad. When you have drought shoots, yeah, I mean, but definitely it's the yield. You know, it's the yield. But I mean, I found I mean, with my series of old wines, Senso, Carignan, Merweh, now I found a new chapter in my life. You know, giving me again strengths in terms of marketing, in terms of identity, in terms of confidence, trust, and this is linked to everything we do now. I mean, natural yeasting, natural production, yeah.
Do you find people are prepared to pay more just because it says old vine on the label? What do you say? Do you say old vines, or old vine, or vieille vigne? What do you put on them?
It's old vines, Senso, old vines, Merweh, old vines, Carignan. We're not over pricing the wines. I mean, it's just, you know, 30% more than the classic range. And I mean, to have an old vine Senso, one that is old, really old, beautiful vines, and Senso that is atypical in the world, you know, for like 16, 17 pounds in the UK. I think this is quite good. I mean, in terms of price, I mean, it's not.
I mean, is it profitable for you to make those wines? I mean, you're making more money on those wines, even though you've got lower yields. You're getting a 30% higher price. Does that compensate for the loss of yields?
Yeah, definitely. It can add a lot of other things on the plate as well.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think that you can taste old vines in the bottle, as it were? I mean, is it concentration? Is it balance? Is it other things?
I mean, where do you understand it more is when you go into atypical varieties like the Senso. You know, if you drink a Senso that is 5 years old Senso, and then you compare it with 50, 60 years old Senso, it's definitely different wines. It's different wines. You know, more structure, more acidity, more coherence, more balance, more minerality. You have everything in the old vine Senso compared to the new Senso, because I mean, again, yield in the old vines, you need to control the yields, and the old vines are controllable, you know, alone. Whereas young shoots of Senso, the yield is a little bit over, so you will lose a little bit of concentration. So definitely, what we can do, I mean, we can taste from the winery. I mean, you know, 5 to 6 young years old Senso, and then going a decade after decade. I have 15, 25, 35, 65, 75. We can see the quality is always uprising.
It's good to know that some things improve as they get older, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's almost, you wonder whether the vine is learning from its environment. I know that's a very superficial way of putting it, but you know that it's adapting to its environment and putting its effort into things that matter more, maybe, rather than just sort of, you know, growing massive canopies. Not they'd be that massive in a hot climate, but is there something in that, do you think?
I mean, I believe in more controlling the wildness, going into wild system de conduite or way of growing the vines, the bush vines. But definitely when you come into bush vines, old vines, you need to keep a little bit window for wildness. You know, you need to keep it wild because it's already wild. You know, I mean, what is bush vines? Bush vines is we don't put trellis to control it. You know, we just give it the freedom. I mean, Tim, I mean, why bush vines are important in our region, and you know why? Because it keeps humidity. But do we control that factor? No. I mean, bush vines became self-resistant to dryness alone, and some varieties do not have this factor because they are already resistant. So they don't need the mushroom style of the vine. So I believe we need to keep it a little bit free as 50%, and then control the other 50% just to make sure. I mean, we have a longer life cycle.
Interesting to know from people watching. I mean, okay, I've had a few examples of wines, particularly from Sauvignon Blanc, where the first release, even when the vines are 2 years, but definitely 3 years old, has been amazing. Sometimes because there's not much leaf area and you get this incredible concentration. But there aren't many examples of grapes that taste good taste better from younger vines than they do from 10, 15. I mean, if we say a mature vine is probably what, 15 years old, 10 years old, when it's starting to give something good, and then
15, 25.
Yeah.
So this year I'm trying a small parcel of non-pruning old, do not prune old sense. So just give it 2-3 years of natural wildness and see what this can affect the quality. And I think, I mean, it's funny to say. I mean, because the Meroueh that we saw, it wasn't pruning. It wasn't pruned. I mean, for decades, and the wine is outstanding, man, outstanding. And just to observe what could be the difference of non-pruning varieties for a couple of years, and see probably it will be much more resistant to diseases.
Yeah, so that makes sense, doesn't it? Well, our time is up. Faouzi, as ever, brilliant. And you can see why Faouzi is a great communicator. I love that idea, Sarah, don't you, of a window for wildness. Yeah. I'm all in favor of a window for wildness in life.